For 50 years, Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham turned their heartbreak into the greatest hits in rock history. But in 2018, a single backstage moment crossed a line that Stevie says can never be uncrossed. It wasn't just a band dispute, it was the final betrayal that ended their communication forever. This is the real reason Stevie Nicks says she will never forgive Lindsey. Imagine being trapped in a glass box with your bitterest ex, forced to stare into their eyes and sing about the exact moment your heart shattered, night after night, decade after decade, while millions of people applaud. That was the reality for Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham. Their relationship wasn't just a romance. It was a highly lucrative corporate enterprise, a globally syndicated soap opera set to the tune of selling over 120 million records worldwide. But the machinery of that toxic codependency completely broke down in January 2018, leading to a permanent, irreconcilable severance that no one saw coming. To understand the absolute finality of this breaking point, we have to examine the unprecedented pressure cooker that Fleetwood Mac operated within. The cultural narrative of the eternal conflict was entirely forged by these two individuals. When they joined the band as a package deal in 1974, their relationship was already fracturing. By the time they recorded their monumental 1977 album Rumors, their romantic implosion was being broadcast to the world. Songs like Dreams and Go Your Own Way weren't just pop hits, they were weaponized journal entries, musical daggers thrown across the recording studio. For 40 years, they monetized their misery. They mastered the art of the performative grudge. Fans would pay hundreds of dollars just to watch Stevie deliver her famous, witchy glares at Lindsey during live renditions of Silver Springs. It was raw, it was visceral, and it was the core brand identity of Fleetwood Mac. The general public assumed that this was just how they operated, believing their hatred was a renewable resource that would keep the band touring forever. But behind the scenes, a psychological toll was compounding. Stevie was quietly enduring what she later described as an emotionally draining, deeply controlling dynamic. She dealt with Lindsey for as long as humanly possible, later stating on the record that nobody could accuse her of not giving him more than 300 million chances. The assumption was that the tension was just part of the show. No one realized that the structural integrity of their tolerance was entirely eroding, setting the stage for a catastrophic collapse at a charity event in New York City. The tipping point arrived on the night of January 26, 2018. Fleetwood Mac was being honored at Radio City Music Hall as the MusiCares Person of the Year. This was supposed to be a triumphant celebration of their philanthropic and musical legacy, an evening of absolute prestige. Instead, it became the exact location of the band's final assassination. Stevie actually arrived that evening with a collaborative spirit. She brought a song she had recently recorded with LeAnn Rimes titled Borrowed, genuinely hoping to play it for Lindsey because she thought they could perform it beautifully together. But from the moment the event began, the atmosphere was suffocatingly toxic. The initial point of contention was shockingly petty, yet incredibly telling. As the band was being introduced to the stage, the event organizers used the song Rhiannon as their walk-on music. Lindsey was reportedly furious. He complained bitterly that using Stevie's signature song undermined the impact of their collective entrance. This reaction underscored decades of deep-seated jealousy regarding Stevie's massive solo stardom. He was the architect of their sound, but she was the undeniable icon, and that dynamic had always rubbed him the wrong way. But it didn't stop at the intro music. The definitive fracture happened during Stevie's acceptance speech. As she stood at the podium, speaking earnestly to the crowd, she felt a profound disrespect radiating from right behind her. Lindsey was allegedly mocking her, complaining that she was talking too long, and explicitly smirking while she poured her heart out. Furthermore, Stevie noted that his hostility wasn't just directed at her. He was exhibiting a miserable, toxic attitude toward everyone in the room, including the young pop star Harry Styles, who was there to present the award and perform alongside them. Seeing Lindsey direct his bitterness toward a polite, younger artist was a profound wake-up call for Stevie. The disrespect was palpable, public, and utterly inescapable. But wait, right here is where the entire narrative of Fleetwood Mac takes a massive, unprecedented pivot that changes everything you thought you knew about their dynamic. For decades, whenever they fought, they simply retreated to their separate corners, let the dust settle, and eventually reunited for the next massive arena tour. But sitting in her hotel room after the MusiCares event, Stevie experienced a chilling moment of clarity that shattered the illusion of the band forever. In her head, she heard the voices of her parents. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind, asking, "Are you really going to spend the next 15 years of your life with this man?" Then, she heard the voice of her incredibly pragmatic father saying, "It is time for you guys to get a divorce." Right then and there, a shocking paradox emerged. The public narrative for years was that Stevie Nicks ruthlessly fired Lindsey Buckingham. But the truth is, she actually fired herself. She made a silent, non-negotiable vow that night that she would rather walk away from the greatest rock band in history than spend one more second sharing oxygen with him. She proactively decided to remove herself from a situation she deemed completely toxic to her well-being. The ultimatum she was about to deliver would completely rewrite the history of rock and roll. A few days after the ceremony, the wheels of this monumental divorce were put into motion by the band's legendary manager, Irving Azoff. He placed a phone call to Lindsey that would serve as the death knell for the classic Fleetwood Mac lineup. Azoff laid out a litany of Stevie's grievances, highlighting the smirk, the intro music complaints, and the hostile behavior. He delivered a chillingly clear message: Stevie never wants to be on a stage with you again. Lindsey was initially confused. He assumed, given the historic power dynamics of the band, that Stevie was simply quitting. But the reality of the situation was far more severe. The rest of the band, Mick Fleetwood, John McVie, and Christine McVie, were forced to look at the situation and make an impossible choice. It was an absolute him or me ultimatum. And they chose Stevie. Without hesitation, the band ousted the brilliant producer and lead guitarist who had sculpted their biggest hits. The psychological aftermath of this decision was seismic. Lindsey was entirely blindsided. He claimed that the publicly stated reason for his firing, which was a scheduling conflict over his solo tour, was entirely factually inaccurate, just a convenient public relations spin to mask the interpersonal bloodbath. He ended up filing a massive lawsuit against his former bandmates for breach of fiduciary duty and breach of oral contract. It was a stunningly corporate, litigious end to a relationship that had once been defined by mystic romance and creative synergy. For Stevie, this wasn't an act of malice. It was an act of profound self-preservation. She realized that you cannot heal in the same environment where you were repeatedly broken. The workplace divorce had finally gone through. After 50 years of giving him the benefit of the doubt, her empathy had completely evaporated. The well had run entirely dry, leaving nothing but an immovable boundary of stone. This brings us to the concept of absolute finality, an extreme rarity in the entertainment industry, where reunion tours are practically guaranteed by the promise of multi-million-dollar paychecks. But Stevie Nicks is not driven by the economics of nostalgia. She is driven by her own strict moral and emotional compass. The unbelievable depth of this estrangement was vividly illustrated in 2023, following the tragic passing of Christine McVie, the band's beloved keyboardist and Stevie's ultimate best friend in the industry. McVie's death was the definitive end of Fleetwood Mac. As Stevie put it plainly to the press, there is no more Fleetwood Mac now, because when Christine died, Fleetwood Mac died, and they cannot replace her. At Christine's celebration of life, held at Nabu in Malibu, Stevie and Lindsey were forced into the same physical space for the first time since the 2018 firing. You might expect that the immense grief of losing a shared, beloved bandmate would thaw the ice between them. You might expect a tearful reconciliation, a hug, or a mutual understanding that life is simply too short for eternal grudges. It was a highly emotional day, with Stevie even recalling that a massive storm was raging outside, joking that Christine was throwing down a hurricane on top of Nabu that almost blew the whole place away. In the midst of that intense emotional atmosphere, they spoke for a grand total of 3 minutes. 3 minutes. After a lifetime of making history together, after sharing the highest highs of global superstardom and the lowest lows of heartbreak, 3 minutes was the absolute maximum capacity of interaction Stevie could tolerate. She politely wished him well from a distance, expressing in later interviews that she hopes he lives a long life, continues to make music, and finds happiness. But that well-wishing is strictly from afar. It is the polite detachment you offer a total stranger, not a former soulmate. It is the ultimate manifestation of drawing a line in the sand. This legendary feud serves as the ultimate case study in the dynamics of toxic creative partnerships. We see this replicated constantly in pop culture, but rarely with such devastating longevity. The dynamic between Stevie and Lindsey is so culturally significant that it served as the direct, undeniable blueprint for the hit novel and television series Daisy Jones and the Six. That story explores the exact same phenomenon, diving deep into the electric, undeniable chemistry that occurs when two people who deeply resent each other are forced to harmonize into a single microphone. But fiction usually demands a neat resolution or a tragic romantic crescendo. The reality of Stevie Nicks and Lindsey Buckingham is far more grounded and much more relatable to anyone who has survived a deeply unbalanced relationship. The critical lesson here is about the power of the final straw. Human beings have an astonishing capacity to endure discomfort, to make excuses for the people they once loved, and to prioritize the collective good over their own mental health. For decades, Stevie prioritized the band and the fans over her own peace. But once that final thread snaps, once the boundary is officially drawn, the door locks from the inside and the key is thrown away forever. Stevie Nicks will never forgive Lindsey Buckingham because forgiveness, in her eyes, would require a reopening of communication, a vulnerability she simply refuses to grant him ever again. The 2018 MusiCares event wasn't just a petty argument over intro music or a misplaced smirk. It was a microcosm of 50 years of disrespect, jealousy, and controlling behavior culminating in one undeniable realization. She chose her own peace over the legacy of Fleetwood Mac. She chose to listen to the pragmatic ghosts of her parents rather than the screaming demands of ticket-buying fans. The eternal conflict has finally reached its end, not with a dramatic screaming match, but with the cold, silent, impenetrable wall of total indifference. If you want to understand how deep these psychological wounds really go, and how the music industry forces young artists to bleed for their art, you need to look at exactly how they wrote the album Rumors in the first place.